for the, for the first one, for the continuance, it'll be Brian, because Linda wasn't here last time.
Yes, that's correct, so I won't be voting on that.
So you're just abstaining? We won't have, well, how many did you have last week? 4 or 5?
5.
We did have 5, okay, so you don't have to,
Okay.
you'll be a non-voting person for this.
Yeah.
Kick me out of
All set? Okay. All right, the Smithfield Zoning Board of Review is in order here tonight. We have alternate member Peter Carnavale, alternate Brian Tholman, member John Hunt, our recording secretary Sharon Gilmore. I am Rick Levely, the interim chairman. We have David Usillo, our board solicitor. We have Linda Marcello, who's a member, Frank Smith, member, and Ed Savito, member, and Kara Ogden, who's a stenographer. Sharon, could you read the notices, the emergency notices, please?
Sure. In case of an emergency, there are 2 main exits out of the chamber. The first is to the right side of the stage, up the stairs through the doorway, and down the stairway to the back of the town hall. The second is out the back of the chambers to the exit doorway to the stairway out the front of the town hall. The men's facilities are through the back of the chambers, past the stairway, around the corner on the right, and the ladies' facilities are through the back door of the chamber, straight up the stairs, and on the left. Please do not use the elevator in times of emergency.
Okay. No reading minutes last month. So.
No, yeah, you had the meeting.
Yeah. Members, did you get a chance to review the meeting minutes that was put out from us?
Motion to approve.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Passed. Okay.
He was a voting member last week.
He was?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, I didn't do those minutes,
Yeah.
that's right.
And Linda would abstain because she was absent.
Sharon, can you read the zoning cases for tonight?
Sure. Old business, 25-002, Trinity Properties of RI LLC as applicant, and Robert J. Baldwin as owner of property located at 274 Waterman Avenue, listed at plat 27 lot 62, seek a use variance to deviate from section 4.3.B.8.A, residential uses multifamily, and dimensional variances from table 5.4, table 1, dimensional regulations, to convert a 3-unit residential building to a 4-unit in an R20 district.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, do you want to make sure, you want to have the building officials? The building official is here in case anyone wants to
Is
ask
it
a
building
question.
official or zoning official?
Building and
Zoning.
building,
Building and zoning.
zoning official and the deputy zoning official are here. So also you should have a copy of my memo
I did not get a copy of the memo.
that I emailed to everybody.
Hmm?
I emailed it to everybody Monday or last week.
I didn't get it.
I did not see that.
You got it, right? You said.
Yeah, right.
I did not see that.
I have it. There it is. This is it.
I did read it. You did review.
I have it, so I'm not voting on it, so somebody can look at it. I'm not. So you guys- I have another one. You have voting on this?
Yes.
You're voting for voting on it.
Yes.
You had sent that out.
Yes. Should be under 274 Waterman as a subject.
I just gave it to Frank. I copied it.
Does Richard have a copy?
He just, Rich, do you have a copy, Rich?
No, I do.
Oh, I have one right here.
He went to spam.
Monday, March 5th.
It was March 3rd.
Oh, March 3rd, 3:58.
Yeah, well, you did, you sent it March.
March 3rd is Monday, right?
Yep.
Dave, I had it, did go to spam.
This is, I did.
So, yeah, thank you. I just received this, okay, I was like, all right, good. I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
Non-conforming by use.
And the building official is here to discuss some of the issues regarding questions over the building having 4 units and what type of code applies building-wise.
Okay.
So continue, the public meeting was still open.
Yep.
We kept it open for last month.
We kept it open for last month. Could the zoning official come up, please? Just. I'm assuming he has the copies of this.
He has a copy of the memo,
Okay.
or he was emailed one time.
Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
Swearman.
Yes. Do you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. You received a letter from David?
Jacob Neves. Jacob Neves, N-E-V-E-S.
Thank you, sir.
You received the information from David here?
I did.
Sorry, you're welcome.
If you could just call that microphone a little bit closer,
All
I'm
right.
having trouble hearing you.
You received this information from our
Yeah.
solicitor here?
Previously by email, correct. Yeah.
And you're aware of the property and the issues that was brought up last
I am,
month?
yes.
Okay. Obviously, the questions came up on the non-conforming by use, the abandonment of the fourth apartment,
In building code.
and all the, coming up to present building codes within the property. Knowing that it's a 175-year-old piece of property, I did also check a little bit with another building official, and what I didn't understand from last time, what I clarified before, was about once you go over basically 2 or 3 units, it becomes a commercial, I believe it was commercial.
So there's two separate, you have the residential code,
Yeah.
RISBC 2. That would be 1 and 2 family and townhouse
Yep,
construction. Everything else is the building code, RISBC 1.
okay,
This is an apartment building categorized in the building code as an R2, as a 3-family, or as a 4-family.
okay.
So there's no true commercial
code?
No, there's not. There's residential uses in the building code. You can have everything from an R2 apartment building to a hotel to a monastery. They're all residential uses within the building code.
And in my,
Okay.
and in my memo for the board members, in my memo, I tried to clarify what we were talking about, because what this board is required to do is look at the zoning classifications or zoning terms. And we kind of went off because we started talking about this could be classified as a commercial property. But for zoning purposes, it's a residential property, it's a residential use. That's what I put as part of my opinions in the memo, to give some clarity. We have the building official here to help clarify that further, because building codes or residential codes under SBC 2 have their own terms and classifications. And I didn't want this board to try to blend them for purposes of the zoning matter before you. So as part of my opinion to your board, to this board, was simply that this is a residential use. And that's what it's being used for, so the board should not have to go down the avenue of, does it qualify, does it meet all the commercial aspects of a specific zoning use?
Okay, being that said, so not commingling the building code and the zoning code, the fact of the matter was that when the fourth unit was abandoned, okay, we have to look at the abandonment. Obviously, the abandonment, I do believe, why it was abandoned would put it in a little different light, as you know, the 3 to the 4. Now, when it had been, let's go back to abandonment. Was that, when that unit was abandoned, was it totally removed? Was the kitchen removed? Was everything removed down to studs? So the kitchen remained in place. Everything was in place. It was just, it was not in use.
I'm not sure how they physically completed the unit reduction at the time. From what I'm told, they did not remove the original aspects of the dwelling from the unit. It was taken offline.
So the kitchen was not removed.
No, we don't have any record of the kitchen, stove, and the circuit being removed back to the panel, or the plumbing being capped off in the wall.
Okay, so to your knowledge, the unit stayed the same, just unoccupied.
That's what I've been told, and that's what the memo, I believe, from when the unit was taken offline, kind of, you get a
But it
timestamp
was
of that.
it was taken offline at the
Correct.
time
Yeah.
to avoid all of the fire regulations, which would have been full fire alarm system, possibly sprinkled in that situation. That's
Possibly,
what
yeah. I'm not sure what the intention was, but it's likely that would have been the intention.
The addition of the fire alarm was required if they ever wanted to come.
I'm sorry?
The addition of the fire alarm system was part of the requirements if they wanted to bring it back up to code.
As a 4-unit building, yeah.
That is a four
Yeah.
unit. Now, I did visit the property. I got to go inside and take a look. I mean, there's a extremely old stove in there. That's the heat for the apartment at the moment. It's still old wood, old doors, everything else. So by looking at it, it wasn't gutted or anything. It's basically just been stored by looking at things.
So really, the abandonment wouldn't apply if the kitchen and everything stayed in place.
I don't believe it would. It'd be classified as an existing apartment building altogether. So fire code's going to require a fire alarm, local fire alarm that's been installed, inspected, and approved. And there's still other code paths they could go by using either the rehab code or existing structures, chapter 34. So it's not like this is a commercial use being changed to a residential use.
So he has applied for building permits to get this back online.
General repairs, yeah, those were issued prior to me. I hadn't issued those permits. They were issued, I think, a year ago, maybe, close to it.
And I had put in my memo to you that the unit can be looked at as, according to that letter, abandoned, but what you're looking at when Member Thorman was looking at non-conforming abandonment, you have to look at whether the use was abandoned.
Which is what the memorandum says. The memorandum
The
that,
memorandum says it's not an abandoned use because it's continuing as a multifamily use. Even though it went a reduction from 4 to 3, the use was still classified as multi-use. So the actual use of the property remained multi-use.
so the next to the last sentence of Mr. DeCourt's memorandum dated August 23rd, 2005, the next to the last sentence of the first paragraph is the opinion of the Smithfield Building Zoning Office that Mr. Edward Bellavoine has successfully abandoned the use of the fourth apartment.
Right.
That's pretty straightforward.
That is, because that's the using the fourth unit. He didn't abandon the use of the property as a multifamily.
Correct. So there still exists beneficial use for 3. This use variance would be to increase it back to 4.
That would be part of what the application will be presenting for the
But
use
beneficial
variance.
use still exists.
That's for this board to determine whether the applicant provides the sufficient information or evidence that there isn't beneficial use otherwise. But I was just simply looking at, when you had the question regarding abandonment under non-conforming, I wanted to give you my legal opinion regarding that the use has not been abandoned. Maybe a unit was abandoned, but the multifamily use remained because it stayed as a 3-family, so it's still a multi-use property.
So we also talked about it went from 3 to 4 becoming a commercial property, parking and striping and all that. So are you saying that's not necessary if this is approved?
Not necessary, because that section we were reviewing was for non-residential parking. This is a residential property. So I looked at it further to try to determine that also. And I think that the applicant may have further information to probably present regarding that. However, that in my memo went specifically to zoning section 7.3I, which had to do with non-residential parking.
Okay, anybody else have any questions for the zoning official? Any other comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That being said, is the applicant here?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Timothy Kane. I'm an attorney licensed to practice law in the state of Rhode Island. I have an office at 627 Putnam Pike in Greenville, and I do represent the applicant. And I listened to last month's hearing, and I would just ask the board to put this in perspective. And my client will testify a little bit. It's a established, legal, multi-family use. As far as parking goes, I start right from the beginning, and I look at Article 7, and it starts off, and I'll read it to you, Section 7.1A, accessible off-street parking facilities for the parking of motor vehicles shall be provided on public, semi-public, and private property in connection with any new building or new use of the premises in accordance with the schedule of off-street parking. It's not a new building and it's not a new use. It's a multifamily use and it's been there for well over 100 years. No change in use of an existing building or lot shall be permitted, this is subsection B, 7.1, unless parking is provided as required in schedule 7.4. There's no change in use in this property. If we were going to a bank, absolutely. We need a big paved parking lot. We're going to a restaurant, absolutely. He's got an acre lot, plenty of land for parking over there. It's like most of the old houses in Smithfield and even the new houses. I live in a cul-de-sac. I have to back into the street to get out of my driveway. I grew up on Greenville Avenue. Every house, little Cape, ranch house and everything, we pull in When we have to pull out in the morning, we back out on a side street. That's the way it is. That's the way it was. So with all due respect, all the talking about parking and commercial and striping and paving, which, do all the soil erosion you want. It leads to drainage problems. It's respectfully not applicable to this application. And I just want to have my client testify to a couple things briefly.
To the board?
Do you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name, please.
Bob Baldwin. Robert J. Baldwin.
And you're the principal of the applicant, correct?
Yes, yes,
And so, Mr. Baldwin, when you purchased this property, did you have a title search done?
yes,
And were you provided a copy of the title search?
yes,
And I believe this memorandum from Mr. DeCourt that we're all been talking about, were you provided a copy of that?
yes,
And did you rely on that when you purchased the property?
yes. I wouldn't have bought it without the fourth unit. I just wouldn't have done it, because the building needed way too much repairs for what it was worth for,
And would it
without the fourth unit.
Would it be fair to me to say that this letter provided you with a path forward if you complied with fire code and building code?
Yes,
And have you complied with the fire code?
yes. We did completely install a new $26,000 central alarm pull box system, of which the fire marshal has approved and inspected it, and it's been approved, and you previously were provided with a certificate from the fire marshals certifying to that.
And I know you testified at the last hearing, you've expended over $200,000 improving this property?
For the repairs, just for the
Yeah.
repairs, yes,
Okay. And you pulled building permits for everything you've done so far?
yes,
And you had the proper inspections?
yes.
If the board was to deny you relief, the use variance that I believe you are correctly applying for, would you be deprived of beneficial use of that portion of the property where there's a vacant unit? Would you have any use of that?
No, absolutely. I would have no use. I never would have spent $26,000 on a pull box system.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I'm at a loss, but no, I can't think of anything that I could add to this, to be quite honest with you. This
So-
seems basically very basic and simple. Do X, we did X, and therefore we're not, this building is 175 years old. This building was built in the town of Smithfield as a 4-unit with individual entrances to each one of those 4 units. There's no central hallway. Each one has its own separate entrance. It was built 75 years before Smithfield had electricity. 100 years before Smithfield had a zoning code. If that's not a pre-existing legal building, I really don't know what would qualify then, quite honestly.
Would it be feasible for you to make this part of another unit?
No, no, because they're built as individual separate units. You can't combine them.
I don't have any further questions. I think it's a classic zoning case, and I think it's a common sense practical application. Is the property unique? Absolutely.
Yes.
Right? It's for lots of reasons that you know. Is the hardship due to the unique characteristics of the property? Absolutely. A 4-family, and obviously the prior owner couldn't afford to bring it into fire code, and so there was an arrangement, a common sense arrangement where they let it go, abandoned, we could call it, and they left them a path forward to come back in and do the things that they've done and come before you, which is the proper board, and get a use variance. So the hardship is related to the unique characteristics of the property. Will it alter the general character of the area? Absolutely not. He's done everything that you would want someone to come in and do to a property like that. He's bringing it back up to snuff, what you want to see in that area of town. And, getting into the loss of all beneficial use of this portion of the property, he wouldn't have any beneficial use of it. I would respectfully suggest to you, it meets the test. He's done everything that he is supposed to do according to the code and zoning variance, and he should, I would respectfully request that he be granted the relief requested. I don't think there's anybody here that's spoken
No, I
against
have a long history with that piece of property, as I grew up in the neighborhood and raided their apple trees and grapevines for many years.
Did you go sliding down the hill in the back,
Yeah,
too?
oh, yes, everything. We spent a lot of time in that yard. It was the biggest property around to go play around with, yes. So I've been aware of that. Anybody else have any questions for anything?
Yes. So, Mr. Baldwin, is it your testimony that your your understanding was the only things that needed to be done were to bring it into compliance with building and fire codes.
Fire codes and building codes, yes.
So how do we resolve then with the first sentence of the second paragraph of Mr. DeCourt's memorandum, where to reinstate the use of the fourth apartment, comma, zoning board approval is required, and the building will have to be brought into compliance with building and fire codes that are being enforced at the time of the reinstatement of the fourth unit,
I'm sorry, that reinstatement.
of the fourth unit. It doesn't say do these two and it's granted. It says zoning board approval and. That is
That work's been done.
not the zoning board approval.
That's why I'm here.
But your testimony was, I only need to do these two things. So it's in conflict.
What his testimony was there was a path forward. Mr. DeCourt gave him a path forward, an official of the town, it was recorded in land evidence records, and he's pursuing a path forward. And I think the relief that he's requesting is eminently reasonable, and I can't think of any reason why somebody would deny it.
I mean, the only possible use for that is an apartment, unless it's just abandoned completely, but the only possible use that I've seen, and I grew up when it was for apartments being used on that piece of property.
I'm simply basing,
Oh, no, I know exactly what you're reading, and
this is what we've been presented.
correct. Anybody else have any questions,
So
concerns?
any further building compliance is whatever's outstanding.
I can say one thing, my opinion is, you had a 3-family with a vacant unit, now you have a 5-coded 4-family building that would be occupied. In my opinion, it would meet the alternative compliance in the existing structures chapter of the building code. He hasn't reduced the safety of the building, he's improved, made it a safer building by doing what he's done. Bringing it up. As opposed to leaving it as a 3-family with a vacant unit, and they could have had interconnected smoke detectors already. Limited fire and life safety.
All right, do we still have any issues with parking in the front yard? Yeah. It's a corner,
I'm sorry, Mr. Jensen.
Are you referring to the ordinance from multifamily? What is the question?
well, we're on a corner lot, and we have multiple cars pulling out into the same street versus having a parking lot where they would pull into as a single entrance.
So you're asking, is the practical problems with that?
Is there an issue with that? Yes. Code-wise.
I'm sorry?
Chris, can you come up to the mic? Let's just make sure we get you
I
sworn.
can't help myself, so I think it's been that way for about 100 years. You would
It
know.
has been.
And Menorah is a dead-end street, it's not Waterman Avenue, let's put it that way. I think we're legally established, it's not a
Yes,
new
we are.
use, and it's not a
I
change.
am just trying to cover all the bases there.
I get it.
Let's swear him in, identify, let's make sure, because he's gonna be.
Okay. Chris, you swear to tell truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
So Christopher Gentile, Gentile.
Okay.
So, under the multifamily zoning code currently, then that would be the issue about having single entrance, not being able to back out onto the street, et cetera. So that would be that issue. And the question being is that since it has been that way for 100 years, it's a legally established use where it is now, would that be enforceable? That's really the question that the
Correct,
board is
because
gonna
we
ask.
have to come up with the current codes, right?
Would it remain, Chris, a non-conforming multi?
But then it becomes the issue of are you going to now are you gonna define it as a multifamily under the current codes versus the codes it was constructed under as a legal non-conforming use? Or at that point, just a legally established use, there was no zoning code. Then, when a zoning code became in effect, any zoning code became a legally established non-conforming use. So really, it's a question for the board whether, under what section are you going to enforce? Under the multifamily, which is, I don't know the exact, but it's further down in 5. Basically, there's a multifamily section versus a residential section.
Yeah.
So that becomes your question. Would you want to reestablish the parking lot configuration under what's required under the multifamily now versus it being an existing legal non-conforming use, which again, we allow. So really the enforcement of that is to allow it to be what it was when it was legally legally established and non-conforming. So I would say that you can leave it the way it is because it's a legally established non-conforming use. And when you're enforcing the zoning code, you're enforcing what it was established under. Again, just a residential use.
So Chris, it basically continues that the board will continue to make a decision based on this non-conforming multi-family, the way it was in the past.
Right, the way it was
We
established
should
and
be,
that.
we should be making a
continue
decision based on that, not on trying to
Yes,
recreate
that's-
the wheel and.
That would be my recommendation.
Right, it
Which
remains
one?
it, that's, and I think there's the solicitor's memo alluded to.
That certainly
It is the board's making it based on a non.
Right, that is a decision you're making, whether to enforce it under
Going from 3 to 4.
how it was originally legally established versus enforcing it as if it is a new multifamily project under the current zoning, which would put it under, which would, again, be all the stipulations that were discussed for a parking lot being paved, only having a single entrance, not being able to back out onto the street, et cetera.
Okay. Very good, thank you. Anybody else have any questions or anything? All right. I'd like to open up this meeting to the public. Is there anybody that would come up and talk in favor of this applicant? Anybody want to come up and talk against this applicant? If not, I will close this one to the public.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to take this under advisement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next case.
25-004, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, 25-003, Nancy Santro Padre as applicant and owner of property located at 44 Cedar Swamp Road, listed as Plat 43, Lot 15A, seeks a dimensional variance to deviate from section table 5.4, table 1, dimensional regulations, to construct an addition in a planned development district.
Is the applicant here? Step up to the mic, please.
Good evening.
Please raise, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name.
Nancy Santo Padre, that's S-A-N-T as in Tom, O, P as in Peter, A-D-R-E.
Okay, tell us what you're planning on doing, please.
Basically, I am planning just to put a two-bedroom onto my existing structure. Just to note that I was approved in 2020, it was extended to 2023, so it expired in July of 2023. So I'm just reapplying. But since I did first apply, the variance for the wetlands is no longer in existence because
Say that again,
the
please.
variance for the, I'm not asking for the variance for the wetland because I fall under, I guess, the, as far as the exemption, under the 600 square feet, mine is 384, so that's no longer a question, I guess, for the board. So basically, I want to put that two-family, I'm asking for a side yard variance of 27.6 feet.
Okay.
So when did this expire?
2023, I believe, because 2020 to 2021, and then I extended it
She
The
accepted it
2020,
one year.
yeah,
This is-
2022.
2022.
Yeah.
Okay, my math is wrong, yes.
Yeah, that part. Let's see.
Yeah. You sold the property somewhere else and bought this, right?
I sold Douglas Pike.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, 450 Douglas Pike, correct.
Yeah, 'cause I remember we were on this, and at the time we had agreed to this.
Had what with you?
We had agreed to the variance, but then it didn't get built, so we got delayed, and then there was an extension to it. The questions I have now is, I went out and took a look at the property, and I got some questions, because I noticed there's now a shed in the front yard,
Right.
and that would put it pretty close to your property line. I noticed you have like some llamas, or something in the backyard.
Goat. I have a goat,
Those are goats?
yes.
Very big goats, okay. Look like a llama.
It's actually a Nigerian dwarf.
Okay.
A Nigerian dwarf. Goat.
And from the original proposal building plan that was given back then, from what I could tell, it looks like we expanded into other people's properties as far as where the other sheds are in the backyard.
Those were existing when I bought the property. That shed to the right that's existing when I bought. If you see it on the diagram, that was there when I bought the property.
Well, it is, but that's not your property on that side according to this. That's what I was wondering about.
As far as, okay, so what's the question?
I was just wondering if, so I don't know if there's anybody here, the original property owners. It was just, I happened to see that. It was kind of like, it looked like the fence area took more of the property line than,
When I bought it in 2016, I wasn't aware of that, but when I was going for, back in 2020, I had it assessed. I had my property, and that's when I knew that that wasn't on my property. But when I bought it, it wasn't brought to my attention. So that shed is right. It's technically, I guess, not my property, you're correct.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
what's that?
The plan doesn't indicate any sheds on the subject property.
It does,
No,
it does
I
right
know
there.
it only does the one on the far right.
That's what they're talking about.
Is that the applicant?
That's one of them. There's another one to the left of it, a little bit more.
I see it there.
And,
So that shed is not on the subject property.
correct. And I was, once we got the information from the town again on the DEM, where I thought there might have been an issue with the water line, but no, it doesn't appear to be none. I was concerned about the shed in the front yard, because we normally don't allow sheds in the front yard. I was just wondering, when, was there a permit taken up to put that in?
I didn't need it because the
The
square
shed in the
footage,
front yard?
it's not in the front yard. My, front of my yard, it's to
It's
the
right
left
in
of my.
front of the fence, the
it's
shed
to the
that's in
left of
front
my
of-
yard, right.
That's
It's
the-
my driveway.
Still in the
to the
front,
left.
still in the front part of the yard.
I was told I do not need a permit because of the square footage of it. It could be moved. It's on blocks. But I was told, I made phone calls down here and I was told I did not need one, a
Now,
permit.
Is this a two-family
This
house?
is a two-family.
And there's no, I mean, you gave us a dimensional, but what is the addition going to be? Is it two levels?
Bedroom.
One
No,
level?
one level. Just a two-bedroom, one level for me. The plans are already made up, so
So is your plan to do the exact same addition you presented 5 years ago?
yes. Yes, sorry.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
The application, I believe, doesn't indicate the number of units on the property.
No, it doesn't talk about how many pieces of property was on this. I know that back in 2020, we did approve this. But then the variance ran out, and they asked for extension, and then that ran out. So it's being presented again. I'm not sure if this is, according to this, I'm going to go by the date of this document, June 5th, 2020. But that's probably what we looked at back then also.
Those records aren't having been made into the process of this record.
Correct.
What decision was part of it? The
The
decision.
the decision was is part of it. Okay, so it's going to be a single-level addition, basically a bedroom?
Yes, sir.
And you need 27 feet of relief from the side setback.
Exactly, yes.
I believe that zoning.
Side yards, correct.
I think they asked for
That'd be approved for
for
28.
28.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's any little variance there. Is there any members, any questions here?
Yes, Ms. Santopadre, does the existing house have a full basement?
It has a basement.
Have a what?
A full basement.
Oh,
It has a basement, correct.
Is the addition proposed to also have a full basement?
Oh, no, it's gonna be on stilts. It's not, there's no basement, no foundation. It'll be, I have, like I said, I have the full plans from Chris Blauer. I have all the plans.
Do you have a copy of the plan that you can provide to the board?
I have them in my car. I can go get them. Oh, they're on my phone.
The reason for my question is, did a little bit of research related to this application, and the parcel lies within Zone A of the FEMA flood zone, which is the 100-year flood. And our ordinance has specific requirements related to flood. Notwithstanding in a planned district PD zone, that you need to provide a contiguous buildable area of 50% of the lot square footage. So if the lot is approximately 18,000 square feet, 50% of that would be 9,000 of contiguous buildable area. Now, while the FEMA map is large scale, based on my review, I don't see where the contiguous building area requirement can be met. Now, I think we can approach this two ways, is allow for relief under section 6.3.1, which has construction in a flood zone and the minimum contiguous buildable area. I would be much more concerned with this if the addition has a foundation, because now you have to compensate for the flood area that is not allowed to take place once you put a structure on it. The other thing is that our charge as a zoning board of review is to grant the minimum relief necessary. And I'm wondering if we rotate the addition 90 degrees, can we reduce the variance on the side yard? It pushes it closer to the wetland, but because it's disturbed under the amended wetlands regulations, DEM is going to reduce that buffer to probably 15 feet. So I think if it were rotated, we can further minimize the side yard setback required, which is kind of our charge.
which would give them 20 feet to the side.
Can you explain why you want why you need the addition where it's laid out?
That's where I was told by my architect after research that that's where it should be. So I hired him, Chris Blauer, and he did it, and he did all his homework, and that's where he said, that side yard, what you're suggesting was where I wanted it, coming off the left side if you're looking at the home, is that what you're saying?
So if you're looking at the home, it would be the right-hand side.
Oh, the right-hand side.
Yep.
I have a
So right
tenant.
now, the the addition is oriented parallel to Cedar Swamp Road. If we were to turn it 90 degrees, the long axis of your addition would go perpendicular.
Okay, so, but I have a tenant upstairs with a deck, that's what you're saying? So I have a tenant and that's where their stairs come up, on that side yard. So we would be reconstructing
No, I think it was just
their
talking about
entrance.
just taking it and just basically, you would just take this piece of it and just turn it 90 degrees, so we go this way, so it'd be 16 wide by 24 deep versus 16 deep, 24 wide. That's what you're trying to get to, right, Paul?
And then without, just want to make you aware of kind of a requirement, is FEMA has a requirement that if you impact more than 50% of the value of the building, that the house in total must be brought into compliance with flood requirements. So your building has, per the town's assessor's data as of today, a value of $278,000. Is your addition, and you don't need to get into specifics, but are you approaching where your addition is at least $140,000?
What, it's gonna cost me 140? No.
Okay.
Oh, God, no.
Yes. Go ahead, Peter. What's that?
May I ask?
Absolutely.
What, maybe this was already
Can you
stated.
turn that mic down?
Thank you. Maybe this was already stated. What is the proposed use of the new addition?
Bedrooms?
Okay, thank you.
My son's coming home from college and he needs a room, basically, so he's coming home.
It's not on the application.
Bedrooms?
I don't see bedroom here. That's fine, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Santopadre, you acquired the property in 2016?
That's when I bought it.
Okay. I'm looking at several years' worth of aerial photography, and things look pretty consistent with how it was when you acquired it in 2016 until about March of 2021. And at that point in time, there seems to be an expansion of the encroachment or a potential encroachment into the abutting parcel. If this board were to grant an approval of your request tonight, are you amenable to removing the encroachments?
And what are you referring to, the fencing?
I see fencing, I see, looks like some recreational yard stuff. I see what may have been a tent. Looks like there's a fire pit. But clearly, there, at least based on the assessor's data, an increase in the encroachment.
I will remove anything, but the tent was probably just in the summer, a tent for shade. I don't have a fire pit, so I'm not sure where that's coming from. I do have a fence on the side yard, but I don't know what you're referring to. But whatever you need moved, but obviously if it's movable, but I don't have a fire pit, and it was a tent probably in the summertime, but is no longer.
Actually, the photo was taken in April.
Well, it was probably for the summertime. It was maybe a tent on my deck for shade, but that's, comes down seasonally. On the deck, you may see it's a little heating. You see something that's square, it puts off heat. That's not a, it's not
No,
a fire pit. I
mean,
don't know.
I can share with you what.
Yeah, I don't know what. Fire pit. I'll let you know when that is.
So this is. It's
The pictures of it.
There is that structure.
That's the shed.
So the shed's back there.
I'm sorry, if you want this on the record, I can't hear what you're saying over there. That's a shed.
Oh, I have a picture blown up from Google, I'm not sure if that's what you're trying to see.
Yeah, that's pretty much. But if you go back to when the property was acquired, there's been at least an expansion into, back in 2016, it was just yard. Now it looks like that, there's fence and,
Yeah, the backyard's all fenced in.
That was fenced right away.
what is the status of filing a wetlands application with the Department of Environmental Management?
I never applied for, I wasn't told I had to.
You're within the jurisdiction, so more importantly, even within a floodplain. So
I have flood insurance, you're right, but so you're telling me I have to apply with the wetlands? I have the exemption.
So regardless of the size of the project, when you are within DEM's jurisdiction, and especially as it relates to the flood zone, you're required to file at least, well, in this case, it would be both, it'd be two parts of the application, one with the freshwater wetlands program and one with the RIPDs or stormwater program.
Okay, the wetlands, I'm exempt from that, because I'm not 600 square feet. I am 384, so I have it right here. I'm under the wetlands exemption. That's what you're referring to.
I would disagree with the presence of the flood zone.
Well, this is what I was told, and I have the exemption here, and I don't know.
Okay? Yeah,
I mean, I don't, if I have to apply, I'll apply. I just was told that I don't have to do that anymore because I'm 380 square feet and it's under 600, and here's the exemption, and I have it right here, the paperwork.
We had something from the town, that's what I'm trying to find. Did you get the engineering information from the town on this property? They were talking about the floodplain.
I did not.
Is your, Mr. Enterprise, is your exemption based on the positioning of the addition the way it is?
Yes.
Is that still, what's the year, is it still valid? Those
Yes,
expire
I was just
soon.
given it. I just came down here 2 weeks ago, and I was given this, yes.
Is that, I mean, given from the town in terms of
Yeah,
laws?
I came here.
So the town can provide you with that information, but you should do your own due diligence to make sure you don't have to submit anything to DEM, like talk to someone first. Okay? Because those are the DEM regs they must have given you,
Right.
but you also want to make sure.
So you're telling me it's not correct? Oh, well, sure.
I'm just telling you.
Right.
The town may provide you DEM regulations that show you're going to be exempt.
Okay,
But you want to do your own diligence because the town is not making opinions for DEM.
I got you, but I'm a layperson, so you know what I'm saying?
Right.
As far as to know that I have to do that, what I'm told when I come down to the town that I am exempt, I just took it at that, but I get what you're saying.
It's good to just talk to like a surveyor or an engineer
Brian,
about it.
take a look at that.
The staff report does
That's
say,
a staff report on the backside.
staff report does say that the extension was allowed
Yes.
to expire. A variance to the Smithfield 100-foot wetland buffer of 47 feet had been granted, but is no longer required as the buffer requirement has been removed by the town. That's in the staff report that we received.
The wetland buffer.
Yes, the proposed addition, 384 square foot addition is an
Can I see
Rhode
fact
Island
sheet number
DEM
2?
exempt activity for a
I'm
home.
sorry, Ms. Marcello, please read that again.
The proposed addition, 384 square foot addition is a Rhode Island DEM exempt activity for a homeowner. Please see Rhode Island DEM fact sheet wetlands number 2, fall 2007 attached. That was attached to our staff report by the zoning. department.
Yeah, so that's what I read too. So basically, they're saying that she should be
Yeah.
okay to go.
Yes. So we're just looking at a side yard variance.
Yep. Members, any other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
with the new bedroom, how many bedrooms are supposed to be occupying the structure?
It's one bedroom, right? And you have sewers there or septic?
I have septic. I mean, I have sewer.
Okay, that's what I thought it was sewer. That's what
I have
said.
well water. Well waters, yeah. Thinking of my other house, Douglas Pike. Well, I have well water, yeah, but I'm sewer.
One bedroom, I believe, your addition,
No, additions too,
2 bedrooms.
yeah,
So with the addition, 2 bedrooms?
yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. No other questions? Okay. No other questions? We can open this up to the public.
I would say that fact sheet number 2 probably does not apply in this case because of the presence of the wetlands in the flood zone.
Because of the,
So under the revised wetland regulations, it's 3.6.5, paragraph A. No freshwater wetland buffers or wetlands are altered or artificially illuminated. All construction activities located within existing or approved cleared areas such as parking areas, lawns, or
I'm sorry,
cultivation.
Mr. Solomon.
Yep, sorry.
Construction activity located within existing or
Approved cleared areas such as parking areas, lawns, or cultivated fields. All construction activities located outside of floodplains. And with the parcel being in a floodplain, the exemption no longer exists.
so you're saying
So here's a copy of the FEMA map that identifies the parcel. And you can see that the FEMA Zone A bisects the structure. Not saying
Let's say it goes
it
right
wouldn't be
around it.
granted,
So she needs DEM approval.
it needs DEM approval.
Or it's just subject to any, usually a condition could be subject to any permits she may need from other state.
To her benefit, I don't want to see her secure a building permit and then have DEM say, where's the application?
Issue a
Tear it
notice of
down.
violation.
Yeah.
But again, that's the due diligence I suggest that you look into after, or in the event the variance is granted again, just to touch base with somebody about those requirements.
So where that pin is dropped,
No,
That's
that's,
the
That's the property.
It's not a
And you can actually see where
yeah,
the
that's a state level.
blue and the green kind of
which is
by,
funny, there's a for sale sign just down the left from her house. Somebody trying to sell the property, it's in a floodplain.
I mean, you can do things in a floodplain.
That's where the house is, right there.
But again, it'll just be something that this board can condition upon,
It can be a condition.
proper permitting, if any, from the state level.
We still give it.
Okay.
But
Very
I
good.
think it's good information to go back and talk to somebody else with.
So I gotta go back to DM, I mean, what, I gotta apply for a wetlands exemption, you're telling me?
No, it would be, this would probably be a general permit request
Through DEM.
through DEM.
Okay,
Just to make sure that they don't come up
because you're,
after you start
you're
building
saying that,
something.
you're saying that you don't believe this exempt applies to my property. I'm just trying to get everything straight here, is that what you're saying?
He thinks it may not apply. He's
Right,
not-
that's what I'm
he's-
asking.
So based on the actual regulation, where I think you get, where you fall out of the exemption is you are in a floodplain. And the exemption is for if you're outside of floodplains. So where your property has a FEMA A zone, which is land within a 100-year floodplain, that precludes your exemption.
Okay, so what you proposed earlier about flipping, would that still,
From a minimum relief necessary, it helps your application with the town. My feeling is that if you can overcome the floodplain issues that are going to arise through the wetlands application, that their relaxed buffers under the new amendment that took place in 2022, I don't think it's going to trigger that, because whether it's oriented to parallel to Cedar Swamp Road or whether it's oriented perpendicular, it's the
Not gonna
same
matter.
amount of area. It's just how you, my guess is the DEM issue is going to be how are you going to compensate for the flood that would occur in that area that now can't happen.
gotcha, so would I have to come back here? You would be conditioned on approval from them? How is this going from
I think
here?
if this board saw fit, it would be that granted, subject to you securing all the necessary entitlement process through DEM.
So after if it's granted here, you would be dealing with the zoning or building department when you get further information, if you so choose to get further information about that area, and go to them for the permitting. You won't have to come back.
I
to
won't
this
have to come back here, I would just go to DEM, do what I have to do, and then go downstairs.
Correct.
I just want to understand what,
I think it's in your best interest to hire
an engineer.
a local engineer or surveyor. I think you're going to have to eventually delineate the wetlands. I'd really like to see, we're dealing with a site plan from a surveyor who's no longer with us. I know Tony very well, but, this survey dates back to 2020. I'd like to see it actually updated to really depict what the encroachments are and how we're going to resolve those. I don't think it's an insurmountable road. I just think there are a couple of steps that need to happen to, first of all, protect your investment in the property, because what I'd like not to see happen is you go the path of getting this constructed, somebody files a complaint, and then DEM issues a notice of violation.
Gotcha,
And they could potentially tell you to tear it down.
okay. All right, very good. Thank you.
Okay, I'll open this up to the public. Is there anybody here that would like to talk in favor of the applicant? Is there anybody here who would talk not in favor of the applicant? Okay,
Motion to close the public hearing?
we close that to the public.
Chairman, I make a motion, we take this under advisement.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next.
25-004, High Step and Dance and Athletics as applicant, and Vivo Investments LLC as owner of property located at 81 West Greenville Road. This is plat 44, lot 81. Seek variance to deviate from section 4.3.d.13 and 4.4.d.13 trade school, not including vehicle repair, to operate a dance studio in an R80 district.
Mr. King?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, on this case, I'm Tim Kane, and I'm an attorney licensed to practice law in the state of Rhode Island. And think there's some board members aware and whatnot that we have a notice issue. The
Yes.
solicitor's aware of it, so I'll tell you how we addressed it the best we could, and then I think it'll be up to you to decide how you want to proceed. So my client did exactly what she was supposed to do. She filed the application, she went to the assessor's office, she paid the fee, and they printed out a radius map and a list of abutters, and they deliver it down to the building officials, zoning officials' office, and everything gets processed that way. Unfortunately, their software, or for whatever reason, it didn't include the people in the town of Gloucester. And the town line goes in right through the front of this property. So that's a notice issue. And unfortunately, a lot of people didn't catch it. All human, right? I didn't catch it. I was brought on after the fact, after the application was filed. Things happen. So what we did is, and I caught it yesterday when I Googled Earth the property, and then I said, oops, there's people across the street, and did they get noticed? So we scrambled, and I did a radius map for the Gloucester people, and we couldn't just segregate the abutters, so I highlighted the abutters, and I guess I'll put this in, and I guess I can say it. And we went to all the abutters, and even the town of Gloucester were required to notify under the law, and we had everybody but one acknowledge. We gave them a copy of the advertisement, and they acknowledged receipt of it, and they waived the 14-day mailing requirement. And so I want to submit these, and that covers everybody but one abutter, and that would be Anthony Valletta and Mary Ann Renone at 2 Ann Road. Anthony Valletta and Mary Ann Renone, and they're at 2 Ann Road in Greenville, 02828, but it is located in the town of Gloucester. They have a Greenville mailing address. So I want to give you a copy.
Hold on 1 second. ANNE Road?
Yes.
So let's make this one applicant 1. The radius map is applicant 1. The abutters list with the highlighted people is applicant 2. And there's something else coming, correct?
Yeah, and I'm going to say, I don't know if you want to take these collectively, and I'll just read it into the record. So this is from all the abutters, but the one I highlighted, and what it says is the undersigned being an abutter within 200 feet of the property located at 81 West Greenville Road, Smithfield, Rhode Island, 8 Plat 44, Lot 81. I'll slow down. Smithfield, Rhode Island, Assessors Plat 44, Lot 81, hereby acknowledges receipt of the below notice of the Town of Smithfield Zoning Board of Review hearing on March 5th, 2025, and does hereby waive the requirement that notice be mailed 14 days prior to the scheduled hearing date. So we had all those folks, we went up, knocked on doors, told them what was going on, gave them a copy of the ad, and I would respectfully submit they're fine with it. I don't think they're here tonight. So I'll put these in collectively, I guess.
How many are there?
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, including one that the president of the Gloucester Town Council signed today. Because you could also have to notify, if you if another town is within your 200 feet, you have to notify, we had to notify the town of Gloucester.
So we'll make that applicant 3A through E.
With regard to Mr. Valletta and Ms. Rainone, I have Albert Gizzarelli here, and he went to their door, and I have an affidavit, and I'll read it for you, and then I might swear him in and have him explain what happened. And so it says, now come the undersigned Albert Gizzarelli, and duly sworn upon oath does hereby depose and state as follows. On March 4th, I hand-delivered a copy of the attached notice to Anthony Valletta and Mary Ann Renone at 2 Ann Road, Greenville, Rhode Island, in parentheses, Town of Gloucester. Mr. Valletta and Ms. Renone refused to sign the notice, saying they don't sign anything. I asked them if they were going to attend the meeting, and they stated that they had no interest in attending the meeting. So I'd like to submit this as
3A through E.
And as an officer, I guess we call ourselves lawyers, officers of the court, right? That's what judges calls, and I can have Mr. Ghizzarelli come and testify. And I know it's hearsay, but it's whatever weight you want to give evidence as a zoning board. They indicated that they didn't object to it, that they hope my client gets it, but they just don't sign anything. They weren't comfortable signing anything for or against. And we tried to explain to them that it's just something acknowledging that you get a notice and that you're waiving, the advance mailing, and they just, kind of blinders on and didn't want to sign anything. So in my opinion, I think we've done everything we can to satisfy notice requirements. And my client is under a deadline. She has a current business in Johnston that's been bought out by the Greco Group. Riccati's is in the building, she's in the building, and everybody's gonna get out. And she's under some pressure, so I would argue if there's a notice problem, we proceed at our risk. My client proceeds at her risk, and she's willing to proceed. And I don't think there's a notice problem, because I think we covered it with that the best we could. And unfortunately, we couldn't get Mr. Valletta or Mrs. Renaud to sign off, but they've been notified. They're entitled to come tonight. They expressed no interest, and if they have a problem with it, and they appealed it or they did something, then it's not your problem, it's my client's problem. So we'd like to go forward tonight, and I think that's probably the first issue you have to discuss.
What is the building in the front? Who's the owner of that?
This building,
The business in front.
and this current building
Yes.
right now, Raja Bellew, and he's here right now, but the building is essentially, I think, vacant. Yeah.
So is there gonna be any renovations to this building?
Well, he'll testify when he's ready. He's done a ton of renovations.
So my question is, in case something happens
Yeah.
and somebody complains, I didn't get notified, right?
Sure.
You say you're okay if whatever you're doing gets stopped until we come back and have another hearing.
I would like to move forward tonight. We'd like to
I understand that, but I'm saying, you move
Yeah.
forward, right? That person says, I don't know anything about this. How did you have something happen that I didn't know, I didn't get noticed? I just want to
Then we have-
be clear.
then we-
You said you're gonna be responsible. I want to be clear what they're gonna be
We have a
responsible.
sworn affidavit as well.
We proceed at our own risk, so
But that affidavit really is, it's hearsay, it's not really.
it's a sworn affidavit. Mr. Ghizzarelli
I'm
can
not
come
saying
up.
you
Yeah,
did, I'm just.
testify.
I
We
want to
would-
just know if, you say you're gonna be responsible, so I want to know if something, you get started and somebody complains.
So hypothetically, if he filed an appeal and said, I didn't get adequate notice, all right, and we do construction, and then it's my client's money and it's my client's risk. If the train heads off the track in the wrong direction, then it's her money, her investment, and her risk.
Well, he files an appeal, and this zoning board gets sued. And then they have to cover in some fashion, I don't know off the top of my head, but they'd have to be responsible for the attorney's fees for the town.
So we get sued because that person's claiming that they didn't.
Correct,
And
you
they
could.
don't cover
The way that they would try to stop it is file an appeal
Yeah.
and ask for a motion to stay what happened because this board technically didn't have jurisdiction to hear it yet. So the board gets sued in Superior Court and has to hire an attorney to go there and take care of that.
And your client will be responsible for all of that.
Frankly, if that happened, I would reapply. I would reapply. If they appealed it on notice, which I would be shocked because they got more notice than most people get, right? So at that point, I wouldn't notice, that's an issue if they had a problem with notice. I wouldn't proceed if I thought they had a problem with notice. So at that point, I would suggest that I wouldn't, I would reapply, basically.
And so.
I wouldn't fight that appeal in Superior Court.
So to the affidavit, because you were asking about that, Mr. Ghizzarelli's affidavit is not hearsay, that's his testimony. But what he's testifying about is hearsay, in case you were trying to clarify the two things. So what he's saying is not part of his affidavit, is his statement. If he says what other people said, that's technically hearsay.
So how do we proceed as a board? Do we have to take a vote to go on this, confirm that this is either sufficient as a board to proceed, move forward, or do we?
Right. So the board can take a couple of options, one of which is you continue it to the next date certain, which is April 6th or 2nd or so. Continue it to 20 days out at a date certain that if you all could reconvene. And either way, we require them to give notice to these people the way they would have, which is just send them the letter according to statute and send it to the town. And then just come back. It would be posted again as an agenda item, but there would be no further advertisement that would have to be posted. And then come back at that point. Your other option is you can move forward as presented and see what happens.
Do we have to take a vote on that, or?
So, no, I don't think you have, I think if you want to continue it, you would move to a date certain and just require that they give notice. Otherwise, you're moving forward on the basis that notice was proper.
Mr. Solicitor, we supply, we have a notarized statement that these are the abutters that is supplied by the town, correct?
That is, I think, the notice that they mailed to the people on the abutters list. Is that what you're?
So who provides the list?
So the applicant, I believe, provided it to the zoning department as part of submitting their application.
We order it from the tax assessor.
Right, but the list then was given, I believe, from the applicant.
Correct, that's
To
the
the
Gloucester,
zoning
the
department.
Gloucester list, we did the Gloucester list, and
Oh, the town of Smithfield did not do the Gloucester.
Just, so it was the applicant's responsibility to develop the list. They provide that list to us. We certify that, we attest that it was mailed accordingly.
The zoning department certifies they mailed the letters to the people on the abutters list provided in the application. They're not certifying that that was the full 200 radius map.
So where this leads me is, I get that they've tried very hard to meet the intent, but at the end of the day, the abutter's entitled to a 14-day notice.
That's statute.
I mean, I have no issue outside of the period between the 13th and the 20th of reconvening, given the circumstances of she's kind of behind the 8 ball to find a spot. I think there are a litany of other issues associated with this parcel, but I'm uncomfortable not having met the notice requirements as the abutters are entitled to.
I tried to find something about waivers or how notice can be waived, but the most I keep finding is what we all sort of know is if a person shows up, then regardless of their letter, they're here and they've waived, and that's the concern with this one person, is, you know, they don't really want to kind of cooperate to make this all
I
work.
think too, it's a little sketchy. I wouldn't want to risk a lawsuit to the zoning board for something that we didn't do wrong. But I too am a bit uncomfortable with that, and I don't know how they can resolve that other than to, we continue.
The meeting's open, so anyone who has already been here as an abutter, they're going to get notice to whatever date, and so they don't need to be re-noticed. And the new people will get their notice, and we try to keep it without advertisement and all the extra expense that comes with that.
Could we rely on the affidavit, it being a sworn statement by Mr. Ghisarelli? I feel like he went there, presented it, he gave a sworn statement, it holds weight, and I just feel like that would be, they've done their due diligence. I don't know, I agree with it, not.
Well, you can give weight to his affidavit that you wish. The concern would be is if the abutter showed up at some point and said, I never said that.
Yeah.
I don't think Mr. Ghisarelli's lying, but that's always, you know, someone can always just come in afterwards and say, well, I said this instead.
I just don't remember saying.
It's a valiant effort. I can tell you the planning board had something similar last fall with a project, and the same effort was being made to try to get people here for, you know, for the technicality on the notice that at the end of the day, we all knew wasn't really going to amount to a big abutter's objection, but, so the effort's there, I just, it's the board's preference how to proceed with the issue, knowing that notice is really jurisdictional. So what that basically means is if you don't have proper notice, you don't technically have a right to make that decision. So at that point, it's the Superior Court saying your decision is invalid.
So if,
That's the legality of the notice.
if we moved forward and the abutter appealed and the applicant withdrew, does that, after that, what would happen?
I'm sorry, Ms. Marcelo.
Well,
The applicant withdrew.
What would happen? Like, what happens in that regard?
so the possible risk that I'm thinking of is if it's been allegedly granted and they appeal and they have to withdraw it, there'll be a question of whether it's a true withdrawal where they can present an application of a similar nature within 1 year. Do they have to wait that 1 year?
So, I mean,
I
we
see.
could just put it off till next month.
I don't know what the time frame exactly is, so I'm
Do they
trying.
have to wait that 1 year to reapply, is what you're saying?
Oh, yeah, that was if the abutter who may or may not have had notice or may or not wants to come forward or whatever they want to do. If they decided to appeal it and the applicant said, okay, we're withdrawing the application and we'll just resubmit the application and notice everybody again. The concern is it's not a change of application within that, you have to wait a year.
Yeah,
There was some sort of zoning statute, we have some sort of zoning ordinance about it. There has to be a change to your application,
yes, if we.
which that'd be problematic for them at that point. Because now they're half,
If we deny it, it's like, almost like denying an application, which is deny it, they have to wait another year to come back and try to reapply again.
correct.
Right.
So, that's why the thought was too, if there was a way we could get this heard in like 16 to 20 days out from today, we could all reconvene that night. They send the letters tomorrow, show up in like 16 days or something. I don't know how feasible that is with places
What
to
else
have it.
is lying in
Yeah,
town?
what else is going on, but or maybe figure that out, I don't know, well, we do it somewhere in here.
Like having a meeting on the last week of March, and then we'll have a meeting next following week.
Correct,
The
yeah,
next one, yeah, so
You
we're
know.
already gaining.
because you need 15 days, well, 16, because tomorrow's the day you would send all the mailings out, and you need 14 days, so you really had 16 days out, so that's the 19th, you gotta be at the 20th or so.
Yeah.
You can't do it the 20th, that's planning.
You're going by work days, right, not weekends,
Yeah, we have to do it on a weekday.
weekday. But what I'm saying is that, like, we got 2 days left, then
No, you
We'd
can
be
count,
in the-
no, you
we'd be in
count
the
the,
last week.
no, you count the full, you're not counting business days, you're counting regular days.
count 7 days.
Yeah, so 6, tomorrow, 2 weeks,
16,
20,
that'll put us like to the 21st, and then you can have it like
somewhere 20, week of the 24th.
24.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Before 10.
if the board chooses to have them return.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Can you move the mic over to you?
Yeah, thank you. If the board seeks to have the applicant return, could we have a full floor layout so we know how the building is going to be used? And that, is this entire floor plan, the footprint of the building going to be used as a dance studio? Will the office and the warehouse remain? And I noticed there are two,
We haven't heard from the applicant yet, we're just still trying to get by this issue.
okay, thank you. We should have a full floor layout.
We should have some kind of.
I think that's gonna mess up the whole notice
If the board
requirement.
sees fit to approve it, we have to be sure that they're.
How many people are they missing?
Officially one,
One
if you
and
don't,
two.
count, but if you count actual letters that have to go out, it's 5 in the town of Gloucester, 6.
Another question, did the existing single-family home, the White House directly across West Greenville Road receive a notice
I think that's the one,
that they can have?
that's the one that didn't want to sign anything. He received it, but he just, we don't sign anything. They made him nervous. They couldn't think beyond it, basically. We hope they get it. We're not signing anything. We don't want to come to the hearing. That's,
What would they be signing, I'm sorry?
they were signing that,
They resigned that
We-
they received the notice.
and that they were waiving the 14-day requirement, which they didn't seem to have a problem with, that they just were not comfortable signing anything. It was just blinders on. We're not-
So essentially, this is the town line. The parcel is comprised of both a portion of the lot in Gloucester and a portion of the lot in Smithfield. So the 200-foot radius that was originally developed was based on these two corners, not here. But it never identified 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
The subject lot has to be drawn in full, and then the 200 feet come in.
We were trying at the
You can't-
11th hour and the 59th minute to see how many were impacted.
So this plan is not complete.
Well, you have to take both of the radius maps and kind of put them together.
Yeah.
Well,
'Cause
it
it's-
should be on one radius plan, showing the town line and the remainder of the lot and the other lots in the neighboring,
I guess I could tape them together. It's hard. I think you tried it, Brian, and it's hard to do with the GIS software. Remember, the procedure in Smithfield, and you pay a fee, is you order the map, the radius map and assessor's map from the assessor's office.
Yeah.
And they charge you to do that, and they deliver it down, and my client is a layperson, and I didn't represent her from day one, because I probably would have caught it.
I'm aware of that. I think you may want to hire a land surveyor to do the radius plan.
I think we can, if it goes that way, I think if you put the two of them together, what you have there and what you have Smithfield, it covers everything.
Well, it may not be scaled if we're tipping plans together.
But what you do with the GIS software is you put the property in and you hit 200 feet, and that's how it spits it out. That's how the towns do it, so. But we,
So
if you're
one of
gonna
the
continue.
things, Tim, that I said to Mr. Carnavale's point, one of the things that I suggested to Solicitor Ursula when we were talking earlier today, given that there is some ambiguity between the assessor's maps and what the true survey is, I would, out of an abundance of caution, notify the owner at OA-5. It's close enough. I would have exercised a little bit of degree of caution. It's entirely up to you and your client, but
Understood, that's a point taken.
So to move forward and this doesn't pass, they gotta wait a year to come back unless they make substantial changes, correct?
Yeah, if an application is denied, you have to wait a year unless you've got substantial changes to the plan. If it's granted and it gets appealed and they withdraw, I'm not sure how it would be interpreted yet, that withdrawal after it being granted would be qualified as technically, do they have to now wait a year or show substantial change?
Wouldn't it be just better to just put this off to next month?
Part of me wants to, but my client's under the gun. So-
I think, and if we can
Yeah,
come back in a couple weeks.
I understand.
I just can't see us voting on something that could put the zoning board in danger of a lawsuit. I'm saying it's gonna happen, but it just like, it makes no sense to us to wait a month and then be cleared, to make a decision and we move forward.
To Mr. Carnavale's request about getting floor plans in, I think if that were to happen, then we have to renotice everybody because it changes the application. And I think if
Well, we still have to do that.
No, you won't.
they could
because-
come at the next meeting prepared to present that as exhibits or testimony, but I think if they enter it into the period where we're noticing, and if somebody has already come in and looked at it and said, okay, based on this, I have no issue, but if the evidence changes and they've not had an opportunity, I think we open ourselves up again to, I think it's come prepared to present.
So,
So the board will be notifying more people that were left out of the list of abutters?
So my recommendation is
Isn't that a new meeting right there? Is it
No.
going to change?
we're in a public meeting right now. So all the butters that wanted to be here can be here. And if we're just basically continuing this to a next set date, the abutters that are here have proper notice because it's been open in the meeting and they could have attended. And then letters go to those additional people that did not get the original letters for them to appear. I wasn't, and I didn't think we'd
Stop the
have,
meeting and continue it.
and I don't think we'd have to re-advertise it officially because if something is submitted as part of this application after this date, they could have been here to understand that that's the point of getting the notice, is to be here and see
Not all
that.
the abutters received notice of this meeting.
Let's go to April 2nd, we'll get your floor plan in ASAP. Okay?
And then just send
Presented
letters.
that night.
So if we're
Okay.
notifying new
I don't want to have to renotice everybody.
Okay.
property owners, additional property owners,
Correct, the additional ones.
does that constitute a brand-new hearing?
No, because this public hearing is going to be, you're going to make a motion to continue the public hearing.
We'll continue this
Yeah,
hearing.
but the people who didn't get the notice, they don't know what happened.
They're gonna get the notice.
They're now going to get the notice to come. They're going to get the letter to come on April 2nd.
Okay, so it'd be possibly a motion to continue it for further information?
Just motion to continue the application to April 2nd.
Are you ready for a motion, Mr. Chairman?
What?
What would the reason be?
To perfect notices to the remaining people identified that did not get the original letter.
So moved.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we continue this till April 2nd?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And you're just going to send letters to those additional people, and we're just going to we'll post it on the agenda, but there won't be an advertisement.
Certified.
Regular statute.
No, it's regular
first
now.
class,
It's regular now?
It's regular mail.
Which is better, because a lot of people don't get their certificate.
And don't forget the town of
Yes.
Gloucester.
Yep, will do. Thank you.
And the nights.
Yep, Knight signed off too, but we'll send him a letter. Everybody but the letter and Renault, so.
Just be able to present it. If they present that evidence
No, keep this public hearing open.
before you
Don't move to close this public.
potentially
I thought you were going to hit the gavel.
cause harm to somebody who may have looked at the application.
So the next motion will be to go into deliberation on the motion.
Next motion will be to go into deliberation. So this
Matt is continued.
matter is continued and the public hearing remains open.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we go into deliberations.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So. First case. Trinity Properties.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the application as applied.
Second. All in favor?
Discussion.
Any discussions?
Application
Any discussions?
Who's voting on this?
The multi, the non-conforming.
You are, Linda's the, hold on.
Oh, wait, I was not.
You can't.
You're right, I was.
So first, let's make sure we're on the right application, because I didn't catch it either.
Trinity Properties.
I wasn't
Okay.
here.
That was continued.
Right. The voting members are Brian, John, Richard, Frank, and Ed. So we're going to,
Strike my motion.
strike or withdraw that motion from Linda.
She can make the motion.
I withdraw my motion as I was not in attendance in the last meeting.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the application as submitted.
Any discussions?
Are they going to mention that?
for a second.
Any second?
Second.
Okay.
Now let's discuss.
Now we'll discuss. Anything we want to add to this?
I'm still hung up on the abandonment.
I'm sorry,
I'm still hung up on the abandonment of the use. I don't think that there's a loss of beneficial use. There's, it was
Brian,
done.
I think, I understand what you're saying. I mean, David made a point, because I also read Black's Law on abandonment. And it's great. It's great. The way we look at it, as in planning and zoning and everything like that. And even, in my opinion too, that when a use is done, it's finished. However, what changed my opinion is the fact that the use itself, the configuration of the use was not abandoned. The occupancy was, but the kitchen was there.
Nothing's been torn down.
Nothing was torn down. If in fact, the owner stripped it, tore out the kitchen, tore out everything, I would assume it would have been prior to you buying that, because.
Years ago.
Right, exactly.
So
I mean.
he can't answer questions.
Oh, what I'm saying is, yes, I had a problem with the abandonment too. However, since everything stayed in place, it's really not abandoned.
But this memorandum was written by one of the most respected building officials and who knows this code forwards and backwards. I would have,
No,
I would have felt that if it was an abandonment of the occupancy, that the memorandum would have said that.
Well, I think in essence, he was referring to the occupancy, okay? But what's thrown me too is the fact that he said the applicable codes of the day. And basically, you know, it has fire alarm. I'm assuming that at some point there'll be a separation where they, again, I don't want to commingle the building code. So let's just go under the abandonment. In my estimation, if everything was torn out, then that unit was abandoned. But since everything was intact, okay, and it wasn't ripped out, it stays the same. Because I had a case, a matter of fact, when I was in Providence, and it was some sort of a restaurant, and the fact came up of an abandonment. So I got called in to do the inspection. When I went to do the inspection, the bar was in place, the refrigerators was in place, the tables were in place, everything was in place, except the occupancy. So everything stayed the way it was. So really, the use of it wasn't abandoned. And under that principle, like Mr. Lovely said, nothing was changed. So I think in looking at it the way David issued that statement about the abandonment, I think he was right. But as long as it's there, I don't think we can treat it as an abandonment.
Is it appropriate to ask the zoning official a question?
Yes, you can ask. Go ahead.
Chris, do we rapidly have access to the zoning ordinance that was in effect at the time that the abandonment took place? And where I'm going with this, when state enabling legislation was revised in 2024, one of the changes was criteria for special use permits. And the town took the position that they didn't want to leave a lot of that arbitrary decision-making power in the hands of the staff when really it should be the board. So they made a lot of what may have existed as special use permits not permitted. And I'm wondering if at the time when the abandonment took place, was the special use permit a multifamily in a residential zone?
I really don't think the town has ever had multifamily zoning.
Even by special use?
No. No. It's only been one or two families. I'm pretty sure. I don't remember a time where multifamily was an actual permitted or special use. Do you?
But there are multifamily zones now. There are zones where multifamily can't be constructed by right.
But back then in 2005, we didn't have multifamily, right?
Yes, we did.
We're not familiar with that, I would say.
Not by special.
We would have to, in fact, search previous zoning code and we'll determine that. I mean, there's definition of abandonment. Yes, it is really a question of what was meant by the word abandonment.
Right, well, he's asking is, back in 2005, was there a special use allowed in any zone for multifamily? And I don't think multifamily had a special use permit allowance. I think it was no.
Yeah, we have to research that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. To say that is,
Because it's in the, what, the R-Med now, or the Med zone that you can do multifamily?
what is it?
R-Med, M-E-D.
is, yeah, it's not our max, it's our R20M.
R20M.
R20M is one of them. There's another one where multifamily is allowed, where you probably want to plan development.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Mr. Gentile.
You gotta speak up, Chris.
I'm going to look it up right now, so I can show you, but it's R20M.
Why don't you come up to the podium?
R20M.
Yeah, R20M for sure. yeah.
EMPD.
So it was a legal, non-conforming use as a 4-unit structure. 1 unit was removed and the building official approved the removal. However, he approved it, what he saw, I guess, he determined that, okay, now it's a 3-unit. So it became a 3-family legal non-conforming use in the R80, which only allows 1 dwelling unit on 15,000 square feet of land area. The subject property has just under 3,200 square feet of land area. I think it's a stretch.
It's an R20 zone.
It's an
R20
zone.
Oh, thank you,
The
R20.
land area is about 39,000, I thought.
The application says 3,188.
That's the building,
Pardon me?
that's the building footprint.
Thank you.
But Dave,
Thank you.
being that
The building
said,
itself was only like 3188 square feet.
The variance for the square footage of the property was 80,000 minus,
Yes.
Oh, so there's 40,000, thank you. Yeah.
so the dimensional variance was roughly 42,000 square feet
Yes.
for a variance.
Right,
I just don't have
For the
the-
lot.
It's a big lot.
Right, so,
39,490.
490.
so the variance was going to be 80,000 square feet required for a 4-family minus 39,490, so that's 40,500 square feet. But the building print has been the same for 175 years, so that's more like a
It was
housekeeping
occupied
matter.
basically until station fire.
How is the 4th unit, the subject unit, being used now? Is it just storage space?
It's
Vacant.
vacant.
I think it's just empty. It's not even used for
So the
storage.
kitchen would have been removed.
No, the stove's still in there, I went in. I mean,
And that's
furniture's been removed, but other than that, everything else is,
but Richard, that's under the
Pretty much the same.
premise, that's what I'm saying. The occupancy may have been removed.
the occupancy removed, but the
But-
rest of the rest
but
of the
it
department is
stayed.
still staying in
It
there.
stayed there, and even if all of us went there prior to a hearing, and we were gonna purchase the property. We walk in, we see 4 kitchens, 4 of everything, It's a four-family.
Yeah.
Maybe one is outdated, but it's still a four-family.
If you walk into that building as a historical
And that's
person.
the premise that I'm saying.
You'd be
That's the premise
shocked
that I'm
at all
saying.
the woodwork,
It's
the
there.
quality of the woodwork in that building. It's
It may have
amazing.
not been occupied, but it really wasn't abandoned totally, because if it was abandoned, everything would have been stripped. So that's the premise that I'm going on.
I mean, it's basically, it looks as if somebody moved out. That's it.
So it's dated, that's it.
Stove stayed with it because the stove was the heat.
So I think when we're looking at the abandonment, it really wasn't abandoned. The use may have stopped. But the design of the structure did not. And that's under the premise that I'm going with.
3.8I, it says an overt act must occur for abandonment, and that's what you're saying.
But the overt act was the applicant abandoned it. That qualifies as overt.
Well, my opinion was the overt act has to go to the use, not to the unit. That was my opinion on the abandonment side for this, was that it was not an abandonment of the use, not an abandonment of the non-conforming use. It was a non-conforming use as a four-family, well, multifamily. It's a non-conforming use as a multifamily with 3 units. So that was my opinion on the abandonment.
And obtaining the memo would be an act of saying that I intend to reestablish this unit in the future, because now I've gotten,
In the memo, I went back to the memo also. It says reinstate, the second paragraph says to reinstate the use of the 4th apartment. So I interpreted that use of the 4th apartment meaning that there was still a use of the 3 other apartments. And that's where I came up with the abandonment. It's not an abandonment of the use. It's simply using the word of Mr. DeCord also, use for the 4th apartment. So use variance for the 4th apartment.
So
That's just my legal opinion.
essentially, it left the way open to go back to a 4-unit. Just had to bring it up to code.
That's the applicant's testimony.
If this was abandoned in 2005, if there was a better use for it, somebody would have done it by now, is my opinion. I think the best use for this is to reinstate it.
There's no other use for this.
No use.
It's just really reestablishing that 4th unit with an occupant.
And with the fire alarm system not protecting all 4
Exactly.
tenants.
We continued because we wanted to hear more opinions. We wanted to hear from the building official.
We had to get the information.
We had to get the information.
And I'm satisfied with that.
I am as well.
Any more discussions? Good. Okay. There's a motion for approval. It's been second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Yeah.
4 to 1. Approved. Okay, next applicant.
So for this, Linda will return to voting.
Yes.
Mr. Thalman will not.
I'm sorry, what was that, Jim?
Linda will vote for this application, not Member Thalman.
And Brian?
Yes. Okay. 34, the applicant. 34 Cedar Swamp Road.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve as applied with the stipulation that the applicant seek DEM approval before beginning construction.
Anybody second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Who
With
seconded
that-
that?
I do.
Just one question. They did ask, the zoning did say maybe give them the 28 feet instead of 27 for next, should we?
Correct.
Should we
We have
make
to
a
include that.
revision
They asked for a variance,
Motion to
27 and
reconsider.
change. Board recommended it was 28 feet to round it up.
Actually, I can't make a motion to reconsider.
I'll amend my motion to include the 28 feet.
Okay. Second again?
Second.
Approved? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No discussion?
So we have,
Mr. Chairman, one last motion to adjourn, please.
oh, we got one more.
We done?
Oh, no, that one's on hold.
Yeah, that one's continued.
That one's continued.
Stephanie, we continue.
Okay, motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
second, approved?
Aye.
We're good to go.
Good job. Great job.
That was interesting. Oh, he brought up